Hey everybody, Jim Deedlow. Don't forget to go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and you can get my podcast at any time. I brought up a topic, and I don't know if it's ever really going to get that much play, but it is one that is personally interesting to me. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to play it as it played out on the air on the week of, I think this might have been November 15th of 2025. All right, here it is. Just let it play for a little bit and then I'll talk. This one to me is personally troublesome. The Catholic bishops rebuke mass deportation of immigrants. In a rare statement, the bishops framed the immigration crisis in starkly moral terms. We feel compelled now in this environment to raise our voices in defense of God-given. Now, there's a lot of Catholics listening, and you guys know that I'm pretty Catholic. And this, you and I can wrangle about, well, is this morally right? And we can make a judgment. And, is it morally right for masked people with rifles to just basically go after brown people and rip people out of their, wherever they are, taking, we had Kuziak had that family on recently where they, basically put a bunch of people in jail and one of them in juvenile, and she was born here and whatever. There was a guy last night I was watching from Cicero. He was a meter reader, and ICE came up to him and he said, well, yeah, I was born here, I'm a citizen. And they're like, what hospital were you born in? And he couldn't remember. So they picked him up and took him. So if you're brown, you better start remembering what hospital you were born in. I'm starting to think about it. I go, man, I go back to Father Weiss at St. Thomas More, and you're sitting there in second grade, you're sitting there in third grade, you're sitting there in fourth grade, all these years listening to him, and he had two main themes. His main theme was to be wary of wealth. I always thought it was kind of odd because he was always going after my dad and all of anybody else that was a member of Woodmar for money for the church. But at the same time, he was very wary of wealth and what it does to you as a person and what it does to a society when everybody is just chasing wealth. And I've always held to that, and I believe in it. I believe there's something there. And then he used to also talk about human dignity. And always like human dignity. And you got to treat every person with dignity. And that is part of the Catholic faith. And honestly, hopefully you feel that when people call in, and I try to treat everybody with dignity except MX. I believe in it. Now, one of the problems that I always thought was like, God, I am so glad I'm not an ICE agent, because I feel the pull of my church, of my God, of my faith, that I need to treat everybody with human dignity. But I also feel the oath that I've taken to support the president and the Constitution, and whatever they tell me to do, I got to do. So you have two competing forces. You have your faith and your God and Father Weiss, and you would have your oath that you took and the uniform that you're wearing and the weapons that you have been entrusted with, and they're competing forces. And I've told you before that I have this recurring dream about a young soldier being pointed to go charge. And I'm not exactly sure where he's charging from, but he's got a superior officer telling him what to do. And he's conflicted because he knows that it does not jive with his faith and Father Weiss, but he knows that he should follow the dictum of his superior officer. Now, yesterday, the Catholic bishops made it official. This makes it even more difficult. It wasn't official then, but I think it was almost a nearly unanimous vote, except for 6 bishops in America. American Catholic bishops on Wednesday rebuked the Trump administration's aggressive deportation campaign in a rare and near unanimous statement that framed the immigration crisis in starkly moral terms. The statement context was clear. The bishop said they, quote, oppose the indiscriminate mass deportation of people and, quote, pray for an end to dehumanizing rhetoric and violence, whether directed at immigrants or at law enforcement. We love our country for this very reason. We feel compelled in this environment to raise our voices in defense of God-given human dignity. Wow. Talk about a moral dilemma. I don't have to make that decision. You don't have to make that decision. But I guarantee that there are young ICE agents with a mask across their face that just went to church on Sunday, and they go on all of the holy days of obligation, and then they kneel down and they give their confession and they say there's 3 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys, and they try to live their life in accordance with the Catholic faith as good men or good women. That's a moral dilemma. You understand? Now it's like, wow, not my church. Now what do I do? Well, I'll tell you what we do here. We take a short break, and I will take your phone calls. So that's the moral dilemma. The Catholic bishops put it out. They rebuke an entire country for how we are going about mass deportation, kind of how violent the whole thing is. I was just reading here. It's a Sunday night. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, just kind of reviewing, what I'm going to talk about this week and what I have talked about and topics I didn't quite get to. And this is one I didn't quite fully, get into. And that is really, it is the dilemma between if you follow the laws of God or the laws of man, or do you follow the announcements or pronouncement by your church, or do you follow the pronouncement by your country? I make it pretty clear there. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision because I don't know what that decision would be. And I think there's a couple of callers that put it in stark terms of how they basically, choose to follow the laws of the country and kind of just don't really want to deal with the laws regarding or the pronouncements by the Catholic Church regarding human dignity. It is really it is a main moral dilemma of our time that is not getting any play. This came out, I don't know, I'm doing this on a Sunday night at my kitchen table just talking to you. This came out maybe 4 days ago, and I've watched the news. I haven't seen anything. So maybe it's not that big a deal, but it is to me. Here I am just a couple blocks from the church I went to 1st through 8th grade and that I did my first communion at. My daughters did their first communion at, and I'm just right next to it. And I'm just a few blocks away from my cousin who used to be the mayor of Hammond, and he's a deacon in the Catholic Church. I mean, it means a lot. And I don't know, man. All of a sudden, it's like the Catholic bishops really came out and got into a big group and rebuked the United States for this. Why are they even getting involved? But anyways, let's hear what a few people's Hey, listen. Where'd you go to grade school?
I went to a Catholic school in Gary that no longer exists.
What was it?
Blessed Sacrament.
That's all right. You went to Blessed Sacrament. So you're a Catholic, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the Catholic bishops coming out yesterday with basically rebuking the United States for mass deportation of immigrants?
I'm not even getting into that hornet's nest. Nope. Sorry, not touching that one.
Are you Catholic?
It's just funny. I am Catholic. Yes, I am.
All right. The bishops came out and they said they rebuked the United States of America for mass deportation, saying that it doesn't respect human dignity. Does that have any effect on you?
Let me ask you this. Are these the same bishops whose priests diddled little boys in the back of churches for decades and they turned their heads the other way? Are these the same bishops we're talking about?
You know what? I don't know what happened. It was that water in North Hammond. It must be different than everybody else.
I'm just asking for a friend. Are these the same guys we're talking about?
I don't know how to answer that. That is a rhetorical question.
These pillars of morality, the ones that turned their heads for decades, these are the guys that we're talking about. Okay.
So wait a second.
What is the referendum by which this administration got elected on? Clean the house. And that's exactly what they're doing.
So
and for you to draw a correlation between the job that these ICE agents are asked to do and them committing a moral sin is deplorable to me.
No, listen, I didn't say it was a moral sin. I said it was a moral dilemma because you have your church telling you one thing and your country telling you another thing.
Their country is telling them to enforce the law. That's what they got hired for, and they're doing their job.
Exactly. So here's your thing. So if you put it in the moral dilemma, you choose the country over the church.
You're doing your job. You're enforcing the law, and that's what you were hired to do, Jim. They're enforcing the law.
And
do I have to remind you? Do I have to remind you what our church is all about?
What is it about?
I already told you for decades what this church did. But I got another point. I got another question. I tuned in a little bit late. 2 questions. Did I miss Racist Ron already? Was Racist Ron on?
Well, I got 2 things with what the bishop said. Do you think that they would let a bunch of people into the Vatican? I'd say the answer is no. And
what do you mean they would let a bunch of people into the Vatican?
Invite some in.
Invite who in?
Some migrants.
Oh, I see. Well,
invite them in.
That's a point.
Here's my second problem. I think if you dig in the weeds a little bit, I think a lot of these Catholic charities played a big part in smuggling these people around the country too. If you really looked into it, yeah, that happened. So I ain't saying there's a right or a wrong, but Catholic charities trafficked a lot of people around this country, dude. I totally get it, and the church needs to follow itself.
How about the country?
Yeah, well, hey, the country's not a church. The country has laws.
That was just a sampling of some of the callers from, I think the show might have been November 14th, not November 15th of 2025, talking about the Catholic bishops getting together and questioning our handling of human dignity here in America. And those callers were a pretty good representation of all the callers, basically, that said, hey, you know what? This country has laws, and let's pick people up and, run into their house with masks on and guns. And I guess I hadn't really thought of it. It doesn't really affected me directly. So I'm probably like a lot of Americans where I don't really think about, well, gosh, you're just sitting there and someone busts your door down and pulls somebody out of the house and takes them away for whatever reason. And it's just something that you don't really want to think about. And that's probably part of the reason why you haven't seen any real coverage of this exact moral dilemma. Do you follow your Catholic Church or do you follow your country? Can you follow both? I don't know. Anyways, I'll bring it up again and see if we get any different callers. Don't forget to go my podcast. Just type in Jim Deedlow, Dedelow, into Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. And you can hear my stuff anytime, any day. Until next time, see you later.